Okay, I want you to picture something, a scenario, I think. Well, I think we've all been there. I call it the birthday card panic.
Oh, I know this one.
You know the drill, right? You're signing a card for a friend, a colleague, whatever. You've got this great heartfelt message all planned out. You uncap the pen, you start writing, wishing you the absolute best on your special day.
And then you see it. The edge of the card is coming at you like a cliff.
Exactly, the cliff. And you realize, just with the sinking horror, that the word congratulations is never going to fit.
Nope.
You've got, what, 2 inches of space in this massive 14-letter word?
Yep.
So what do? You start cramping the letters. You sort of curve them down the side of the page.
The classic squeeze. And it never, ever looks good.
It looks awful every single time. Now, the reason I bring this up is that we fail at this task even though we have eyes. We can literally see the paper.
We can see everything, the margins, our own handwriting.
And yet today we are talking about something that can do this perfectly, without eyes, without even knowing what a page is.
Yeah, it's a fascinating ability. We're doing a deep dive into this, this really dense but incredible paper from Anthropic. It's called When Models Manipulate Manifolds.
Manipulate manifolds? That sounds, I don't know, like something out of a sci-fi warp drive manual.
It does sound a bit abstract, I'll give you that, but it's actually looking at a very specific, very tangible skill that large language models have.
Yeah.
Specifically Claude 3.5 Haiku. The skill is line breaking.
Line breaking. Okay, which on the surface sounds kind of boring, right? It sounds like word processing. Why should we care where a computer decides to hit the enter key?
Because it's not just formatting. It's a window into, well, into perception. Think about it. These models, they don't see pixels. They don't see margins, no white space on a page.
Right.
All they see is a stream of integers, tokens. And yet, if you ask one to format a paragraph to be exactly 40 characters wide, it does it. It knows exactly when to hit newline, so it doesn't just slice a word in half.
Yeah. And the mystery is how? How does a calculator made of text know that the word aluminum is going to run off some imaginary edge of a page it can't even see?
That is the mission for us today. We're not just looking at code. We're sort of looking at digital biology. We're going to uncover the specific sensory mechanisms the model builds, completely from scratch.
Okay.
We're going to talk about spiral staircases, twisting geometry, and this is the part that really blew my mind, how we can actually trick these things with visual illusions made entirely of text.
I do love a good optical illusion, or a text illusion, I guess. So, okay, let's unpack this. We're calling this section what? The blind typesetter.
Right. So to really appreciate what the model is doing, we have to define the constraints. The model gets a list of numbers, tokens, and has to do 3 things at once to get this right.
Okay, walk me through the checklist. What's it juggling?
First, it has to track its position in the current line. It needs this sort of mental counter saying, I am character number 35. Second, it has to know the rule. The line must end at 40 characters.
Okay, position and limit. Simple enough. It knows where it is, and it knows where the wall is.
But the third one, that's the kicker. It has to predict the length of the next word before it even writes it. It has to look into the future.
Because if I'm at character 35, and the next word is, say, elephant, which is 8 letters.
Exactly. You have to know elephant is too big for the 5 spaces you have left. So you have to hit enter now before you even write the E.
If you wait until you're actually writing the word, it's too late. You've already broken the rule.
You've already gone over the cliff.
Yeah.
And it's doing this without a ruler. It feels almost biological, doesn't it?
It does. It feels like when you're walking in a dark room and you put your hands out to feel for the wall, you're building a mental map.
That is a perfect way to put it. In biology, we'd call that sensory substitution, like a bat using echolocation.
Sure.
The bat doesn't have vision like we do, but it builds this amazing 3D map of the world from sound waves. This model is doing something very similar. It has to invent a way to feel the length of a line using just math.
So let's get into the brain of the bat here, or the model. When the researchers cracked this thing open to see how it counts, what did they find? I'm just assuming it's counting like 1, 2, 3, like a tally mark.
You would think so, right? I mean, that's the logical way for a computer to count. But no. And this was the big aha moment of the paper. If the model just used a straight number line, it would run into some serious engineering problems.
What kind of problems? I mean, counting seems pretty basic.
It's what's called the resolution problem. In neural networks, everything is represented as vectors, which are just points in space. If you have points on a straight line that are too close together, it's hard for the model to tell 41 from 42.
It gets noisy.
Very noisy. It's like trying to read a ruler where the tick marks are microscopic.
Okay, so Just spread them out then. Make the ruler bigger.
But if you space them out so they're distinct, the numbers themselves get huge. And neural nets hate huge numbers. When values get too large, the math becomes unstable, you get exploding gradients, training fails. So the model's stuck.
Between a rock and a hard place. Too close and it's blurry, too far apart, and it breaks the math.
Right. It needs to count up to, say, 150, a typical line length,
Yeah.
without getting crowded, but also without using massive values. It has to compress the information.
And that's where the manifold comes in.
Precisely. Instead of a line, the model builds a manifold.
Okay, we have to pause on that word, manifold. That's one of those terms that gets thrown around in AI papers all the time. Can you give me the explain like I'm 5 version?
Yeah, it sounds scary, but it's actually pretty intuitive. A manifold is just a shape that your data lives on, inside a much bigger space. So imagine a fly buzzing around a room.
Yeah.
The room is 3D space, the fly can go anywhere. But if that fly lands on a piece of string hanging from the ceiling and just walks along it, the fly is now restricted to a 1D manifold, the string.
Okay, so the room is all the possible thoughts the AI could have, and the string is the specific path of counting characters.
You got it. The model collapses all that possibility down to a specific structure, just for counting. So the question becomes, what is the shape of that string? What shape does the model use?
Well, you said a straight line is bad, so does it curve?
It creates a spiral, specifically a helix.
A helix, like DNA.
Very, very similar. The researchers looked at the model's internal state, they call it the residual stream, and they projected it down to 3D. And the numbers 1 through 150, they didn't form a straight line, they formed this beautiful twisting curve.
Wow.
In the paper, they actually compare it to the seams on a baseball.
The seams on a baseball, that's such a specific visual. I'm picturing that red stitching just curving around the white letter.
Hold that image. Think about why a baseball seam is shaped that way. It has to wrap around a sphere, right? It curves back and forth. This is the solution to the crowding problem. By spiraling the line, by adding these ripples, the model can pack a long sequence of numbers into a very small space.
Oh, I think I see. Because if you're on a spiral, point 41 and point 42 might be physically close, but they're at slightly different angles.
Exactly. They are distinct because of the rotation. It separates the neighbors without needing infinite space. It's actually mathematically optimal. It lets the model have high resolution, knowing the difference between 41 and 42 without the values blowing up.
It's just wild that the model just figured that out. We didn't program it to use a spiral, did we? No engineer sat down and typed def use spiral counting.
No, not at all. We just said, learn to break lines. The spiral emerged as the most efficient way to solve that problem.
Yeah.
It evolved. And, speaking of evolution, this is where it gets really interesting for the biology fans out there.
Oh.
They found that specific features in the model fire for specific number ranges. Like there's a neuron that lights up only when the character count is between, say, 35 and 55.
That sounds really familiar. Something about rat brains.
It should. It mimics place cells in the brains of mice and other mammals. When a mouse is in a specific spot in a maze, a specific place cell fires. It tells the mouse, you are here.
So the model spontaneously evolved place cells for text?
It did. It's eerie. It implies that navigation is this universal concept. Whether you're a mouse in a maze or an AI navigating a sentence, the most efficient solution is to build a map with coordinates.
It built a GPS out of a spiral staircase?
Pretty much.
Okay, so we have the spiral. The model knows it's at step 35 on the spiral staircase. That covers the where am I part. But knowing where you are isn't enough to break a line. You have to know where the edge is. You have to know the limit.
Right. And this brings us to the next mechanism, which handles the comparison.
Yeah.
Because having a count is totally useless if you don't compare to the line width.
So if the limit is 40 and I'm at 35, I need to know that the gap is 5.
Correct. The researchers found these specific mechanisms they called boundary heads. These are attention heads, parts of the model that focus on different things. And these boundary heads, they track the line width, usually by looking back at previous lines to see how long they were.
So it looks back and says, okay, the last 10 lines were all roughly this wide, so that's my target.
Yes, but the way it compares the target to its current position, it's pure geometry. It takes the character count spiral, the one we just talked about, and it performs a linear rotation on it. It literally twists the spiral.
Wait, it twists the math? What is that? What does that do?
Imagine you have two springs. One is your current count and one is the limit. The model twists the count spring so that it aligns with the limit spring, and when they line up, specifically when the count gets close to the width, they click. You get a high activation.
It's like a lock and key. Or dialing a combination lock.
That's a great way to put it. When the tumblers align, the lock opens. The model rotates the mat so the current count lines up with line limit.
But here's my question. If I'm writing, I don't just need to know I'm close. I need to know exactly how much space is left.
Right.
I have 3 characters left. It's very different from I have 10 characters left. Does this spiral twist give it that kind of precision?
Not by itself, no. A single head might be a bit fuzzy, and that is why the model doesn't rely on just one. The paper describes this beautifully as stereoscopic vision.
Stereoscopic, like how having 2 eyes gives us depth perception.
Yes. One eye gives you a flat image. 2 eyes give you triangulation, depth. The model uses multiple boundary heads, all working together. Head 0 might handle the range where you have, say, 15 to 20 characters left. Head 1 handles 10 to 20. Head 2 handles 5 to 15.
So they overlap.
They overlap perfectly. And by summing these overlapping heads together, the model gets a super high resolution estimate. It creates a 2D curve of information from these 1D inputs. It knows with high precision, I have exactly 7 characters left.
It's incredible that it's not one counter doing the work. It's a whole committee.
It is a distributed choir. No single neuron knows the answer. The answer just exists in the harmony between them.
That is poetic.
Mm.
Okay, so let's recap where we are. The model knows where it is on the spiral. It knows where the cliff edge is, thanks to the twists and the stereoscopic vision. Now comes the moment of truth, the decision to break or not to break.
This is the final step. So let's say the model knows it has 7 characters left.
Yeah.
And it predicts the next word is aluminum.
Which is 8 characters.
Right. Aluminum is not going to fit. It has to hit newline instead of writing the word. The researchers, they mapped this out using what's called an attribution graph. It traces the flow of information.
Okay.
And you can see these features for with the previous line and position and current line feeding into a calculation for distance from line limit.
And this is where geometry comes back to save the day, right?
It does. They found that the decision geometry is orthogonal.
Okay, another geometry term. I need you to break that down for me. Orthogonal means perpendicular, right?
Yeah.
Like 90 degrees.
Right. Imagine a standard graph, x and y axis. On the x-axis, the horizontal one, you have characters remaining. On the y-axis, the vertical one, you have next token length. These 2 pieces of information are represented in subspaces that are perpendicular to each other.
Why does that matter? Why not have them parallel or something?
Because if they're perpendicular, you can draw a simple straight line through the graph to separate the safe zone from the overflow zone. It makes the decision what we call linearly separable.
It's like slicing a cake. If the ingredients are all mixed up, you can't just slice out the chocolate. But if the chocolate is one layer and the vanilla is another orthogonal, you can cut right between them.
That's it. It allows for a very clean decision boundary. And the mechanism itself functions like a neurological tug of war. You have break predictor, features neurons that get excited if the word is too long. They're screaming, abort, abort, hit enter.
And on the other side?
You have break suppressor features. These are neurons that calm everything down if the word just fits. They're saying, no, wait, we have 8 spaces and the word is elephant. Wait, actually, elephant is 8 letters. We fit. Stay the course.
And that tug of war happens in a fraction of a second, millions of times.
Constantly. Every single time it generates a token, this whole geometric check happens.
So we've painted this picture of a highly sophisticated geometric machine. It's evolved spirals, stereoscopic vision, orthogonal decision-making. It sounds foolproof, like this thing should never make a mistake.
It sounds foolproof, but this is where the paper gets really fun. Because if you understand the mechanism, you can hack the mechanism.
Visual illusions, but for a brain that doesn't have eyes.
Yes. The researchers asked this really cheeky question. If the model relies on these specific cues to track the line length, can we introduce a false cue, a red herring that just breaks the geometry?
Like a magician distracting you with one hand while the other hand does the trick.
Precisely. They created something called the double at illusion, the at symbol.
Say. Why that? It seems so random. Why not hashtag checker dollars?
Because context matters. In coding, specifically in Git diffs, which are used to compare versions of code lines, often start with at tasi. It's a marker. The model has learned from reading millions and millions of lines of code that at often signals a reset or a specific formatting boundary.
So it's a trigger, like a bell for Pavlov's dog.
It's a learned anchor point. So what the researchers did is they took a normal sentence, like the bird flew away, and changed it to the bird at you away. Just jammed the symbols right in the middle of a word.
And what happened? Did it just ignore them?
The counting mechanism went haywire. Normally, those boundary heads we talked about, they look back to the previous new line to start counting. They anchor on the start of the line. But when the at appeared, the heads got distracted. They split their attention.
They didn't know where to start counting from.
Exactly. Some looked at the new line, but some of them got pulled to the at FB. They started counting from there instead.
So the model literally lost count.
It hallucinated a different line length. It thought the line was way shorter or longer than it actually was. As a result, it would break the line too early or way too late.
No.
The aluminum example in the paper is great. You insert the at, and suddenly the model thinks it has tons of space, so it writes the word, and it just spills right over the edge.
That is astonishing. It's not just a calculator error, it's a perception error.
Yes. That's the key insight.
Yeah.
If it were just counting integers, 1, 2, 3, it wouldn't matter. Calculator doesn't care if you type 5 plus 5 or 5 plus it plus 5.
Right. It would just give you an error.
But the model isn't counting. It is perceiving the line based on cues.
It reminds me of those arrow illusions, the ones for humans. The
Yeah.
Mueller-Lyer illusion. You have two lines are the same length, but one has arrows pointing out and one has arrows pointing in, and your brain swears one is longer.
It's the exact same principle. Our brains use cues like angles to estimate depth and size. When those cues are manipulated, our perception fails. The LLM has evolved its own set of cues, like the at marker, and when you manipulate those, its perception fails too.
It makes a model feel, I don't know, strangely vulnerable, like it has these sophisticated geometric structures, but you throw a little bit of weird text at it and it just gets dizzy.
It reveals that the intelligence is built on correlations and patterns, not rigid logic. It's probabilistic geometry. It's guessing based on the shape of the data. And if you warp the shape, you warp the guess.
So what does this all mean? We've gone from birthday cards to spirals to twisted manifolds and now text illusions. When you step back and look at this paper, what's the big takeaway for you?
For me, I think it comes down to what I'd call the complexity tax. When we try to understand these models by looking at individual neurons, it just looks like chaos. It's a mess of millions of tiny pieces. And that's the tax you pay for looking too closely.
You lose the forest for the trees, or the spiral for the individual points.
Right. But when you zoom out and you look at the geometry, the spirals, the orthogonal cuts, the manifolds, it all suddenly becomes simple, becomes elegant. The geometry offers a simpler explanation for the chaos.
It's like physics, you know. Atoms are chaotic, they're bouncing around everywhere, but the laws of thermodynamics are elegant and predictable. We're finding the thermodynamics of thought.
Exactly. And it really reinforces this idea of distributed intelligence. No single part of the model knows the line lengths. The knowledge emerges from the twisting and the summing of all these curves.
It makes me wonder what else is hiding in there. We found a spiral for counting characters. We found a twist for line breaks. These are concrete things, numbers, space. But these models deal with so much more than that.
And that is the provocative thought to end on, isn't it? If LLMs have evolved these visual cortices made of math just to see text spacing, what other senses have they developed?
Right. What's the geometry of truth? What is the shape of morality?
Or sarcasm. Does sarcasm have a spiral structure? Does a lie look like a twisted manifold? We haven't found the geometry for those abstract concepts yet, but this paper really suggests that the geometry is there, just waiting for us to map it.
A geometry of thought. That's both beautiful and a little terrifying.
And all good science should be.
Absolutely. Well, next time you're squeezing congratulations onto a birthday card, just remember, there's an AI out there visualizing a spiral baseball seam to make sure it doesn't make the same mistake. Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
Thank you. Keep exploring the manifolds.